Tim, I've managed to finally get a hold of you for 15 minutes today just to chat about you for once. You know, we always have these quick meetings, technical chats about where Halo's going or what we're doing or trying to solve problems, but I just wanted to grab you today and show the community really who Tim is, who's the man behind the curtain, if you will, and ask you some... we're not going to ask what colour underwear you're wearing, mate. Don't panic about that. But just a few questions about Tim, you know, just get inside your head a little bit. So I really appreciate your time today. And yeah, we'll go on our YouTube channel as standard. So yeah, thanks for joining us, mate.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Excited to chat. Yeah, let's see what you've got to ask.
Yeah, so obviously we all know who Tim Bowers is, right? You're the head of HaloPSA. You're on all the social platforms. You're the go-to. I'm going to call it problem solver for anything PSA related. But we don't know anything about you, Tim, really, other than you work more than me, which I didn't think was possible. And we've obviously joked about this over the years. So I suppose starting question for me, you know, is what do you do outside of Halo, mate? What do you do for fun?
Yeah, so I've got two kids, Eden and Rowan. They're 6 and 8, and they take up a lot of my time outside of work. Other than that, I play football, I go mountain biking, I try and go rock climbing when I can, but not as much as I used to. But I mean, I do genuinely enjoy work to the point where it doesn't feel like work for me. So it probably sounds like a cliche, and not everyone will get that, which is a shame. But I will spend time browsing Reddit or the sysadmin subreddit, just because I find it all interesting. And yeah, for me, it doesn't feel like work, honestly. That's why I'll sometimes be up until 2 a.m. coding or something like that, because it's fun. Like, I genuinely enjoy it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, really. I think some of our majority of our interactions are typically when we're both a little bit quieter. So end up being on the weekend or on the evenings. I think that's kind of how we, I'm not going to say got close. I know it's Valentine's Day, but you know, it's kind of how our relationship kind of blossomed because we both were similar. And again, I've worked with you guys a couple of years now. It was a case of I'll send you these bunch of questions, you'll email back at late, we'll get in a bit of a chat, and then we'll move on with our lives, I suppose. And it's good. So yeah, it's interesting, really. You know, people just see you as always present. Ask a question, Tim will respond like instantly, and all of these forums, and we love it as a community, as you know, even as partners, we love it. But we do often wonder, like, how many Tims is there? Is there like an army of Tims? Is what we sometimes think. But no, it's good to hear you enjoy it, mate. You know, and what people won't know as well, I got roped into it, and I don't know how this even happened last January, of coming to watch the Halo football team. In training for some unknown reason. Why I attended that, it was freezing cold. But you're actually pretty good at football as well, Tim. So the question for me is you're just good at everything you do? Is that the standard? Is that where you go with life?
I don't think so. I think it's more that I focus on the things that I am good at.
Yeah. Okay. I respect.
There's plenty that I'm not good at, but I'll leave that to someone else to do.
Makes sense. So how long have you worked for Halo then? Like, is this your first job? Have you worked at MSPs before? Like, what's the timeline, I suppose, of yourself?
Yeah, I mean, so in terms of like I guess a proper job, it is the first proper job I ever had. So I finished uni, I done a bit of manual labour work, I think, for a bit, and then went travelling. So I went to India and Nepal for 6 months, and that was great. And I got back and didn't know what I wanted to do still. So I ended up just joining a local software company that had 4 or 3 employees at the time. And that was it. That was when I joined, and I've been there ever since. I didn't join for a specific role. Generally, when we hire people, we just hire graduates. We hire for attitude and aptitude rather than any specific skill sets. And I spent the first year or two working on basically on support. But as it was so small, you ended up getting involved in consultancy. You ended up going on site visits, go do trade shows. I ended up being a developer. So I didn't join to be a developer, but after probably a year and a half, I was starting to get a bit more involved in looking at the code whilst I was debugging issues, and then just ended up writing features. And then it's kind of from there, it just grew into whatever I needed to do at the time. So I probably spent the next 3 years being a developer. I think I then moved to consultancy and done site visits and implementations and projects for probably 2 years. And then I moved into the sales team for a couple of years. Wasn't so good as that. It was more kind of technical sales than full sales, I guess. And that's when I started running the HaloPSA side of the company. Once I'd kind of spent a bit of time in all those different departments, which is really good because it means if anyone from anywhere in the company pretty much comes to me with a question, I'll probably have a fairly good answer for it, or at least I'll be able to understand what the problem is.
And what was it that made you stay for the duration? Was it the fact you just bounced around departments and just found a new love for it, or again, I'm not going to say you had the hindsight to know it would ever be what it is now, but what was there always that this is going to go massive at some point, or was it just the job's okay, we're kind of mulling along, I'm changing roles each year? Like, what was because we look at it from the outside, we're like, it was net help desk, like obviously Robbie who works with me had it as net help desk. I think Paul sold him it in person, right? That's how long ago you were going back, and it was like, yeah, it was all right, but as most help desks are, it was all right. And then come to present time and it is just ridiculous. Was that always, not, I'm not saying planned, but was it, you always thought it could get there, or was it just, or not?
No, not really. I'm not really. I'd say until recently, I didn't really get any. I didn't really have a commercial brain or have an interest in the commercial side of things. So I was very much focused on the customer side of things. Can I fix this problem for a customer? Can I get this implementation done and get them happy? And can I develop this feature quickly so they can start using that bit of the system? But I never really had a long-term plan. I just enjoyed the work that I'd done. So I've just kind of ended up in this position. And learn little bits and pieces as I go, I guess. I've always enjoyed working with Paul, the founder. He's pretty motivational, inspirational guy to work with. I don't know if you've picked that up from him, but definitely when you're working with him, he's great fun. He's kind of fearless. He'll go for anything. He's always got time for anyone. And I think people that have worked around him and the first few people to join Halo probably have kind of picked up a lot of that from him, I think. So yeah, I've just enjoyed the whole time and I've never looked at a job anywhere else ever, and I don't think I will ever go anywhere else ever.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
I've probably told him that after 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And have you felt a moment when it's just gone bang, or has it just always been this continual growth? Because there was obviously this big kind of explosion, right? What, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, maybe, when just it hasn't stopped. Kind of when I've got involved, really, it's just never stopped. In my head, there's going to be this crescendo, right? It's gonna, right? We're so busy. We're going to stop at any point now, like taking on as many customers. It doesn't, and for 2 years now, this trajectory is just going bigger and bigger. Like our inbound is just getting unmanageable now. Like we need like another 100 partners or 1,000 more Halo staff to even handle the influx. Like, have you felt that gradually, or was there just like a explosion point?
It's gradual, I think. It's gradual, and because we've always been a growing company, everyone that's here and that has ever been working at Halo is used to working under pressure, working just ahead of where you're actually able to. Because realistically, if you're a growing company and you're growing every year, you're never going to get your work done. You always end the day with something that you didn't manage to fit in, and that's just the reality of it. It's not very satisfying, and sometimes I think some people find that difficult to get on with, because it is, I don't know, it's difficult. You want to get your work done. You don't feel good if you haven't done it. But I've always just been so focused on, I guess, just the customers and getting things fixed for people and working for people, that I don't really ever look back. Haven't really done that. I haven't really, I don't know, thought about where it's come from or where it's going or anything like that. I'll just kind of do what's in front of me. I've got ideas of where I want it to go, and you can do little bits and pieces for kind of making it go in the right direction. And obviously we do that, but generally it's trying to work with customers and find solutions for them that I like doing. That's kind of my background, I guess.
It's kind of the biggest sales tactic we have as partners. People go like, why go to HaloPSA? And I'm like, well, I invest in companies, right, not products. Anyone can build a product. There's millions of products out there. The reason I partnered so many years ago was, because of you guys, right? The team, the people there. The product was fine. It was a pretty good product a few years ago. There was loads of things that annoyed me, but they did in any software, right? It was the company and the people around it. And even now when we're selling it, it's like, why should I buy Halo? I'm like, because they listen. And they change and they adapt to their partners.
Yeah.
You're buying into a mindset. It's not like there's a big problem and then they might fix it this year. It's there's a big problem, they fix it instantly, and if enough people need this thing and it's going to really impact MSPs in a positive way, you'll do it pretty quickly. And that's kind of the sale we like with it. Like, we love it. Like, it's such. I often say to people, like, we're selling like a monthly recurring package to our partners, and they're like, they need that because they just can't keep up anymore. Like, they never could, but like, it's so aggressively developed that even as a partner who, this is all I do, to be clear, and I can't even keep up. So if you're just a consumer of the product, how do you manage that? And that's why we're kind of selling that now. But do you ever think that development's going to slow down? So, like, I know obviously recently you sent out the survey about documentation, right? And the community's thoughts on that. I won't drag that up today. But is there a plan, to slow development down and go, right, we're going to really refine the product now and document and do it?
I mean, I'd say for people that haven't been on the journey for 5 years, they will have seen a slowdown in the integrations that we release. So at one point we were doing an integration a week, and we've done that for about 2 years on average. So I think at the start of that, we were probably doing more than that. But it does mean that what you end up with is integrations that meet 80% of the market's need, or 70%, or I don't know, some percent, but there's definitely a lot of them, good chunk, 10-20%, where it doesn't quite fit what they need. And you do end up with annoyed customers, essentially, that wanted to use it, they couldn't because it didn't do this and that properly. So I think what you'll see is a slowdown in new integrations being added, and you will see that already, and instead us going back over a lot of integrations that are still being used and adding stuff. So I don't know, IT Glue's getting a couple of weeks spent on it this week. I think one of the developers is doing some stuff there. We always go back and work with Ninja and Enable on their integrations whenever anything else becomes available, so they're normally pretty good. And they meet most of the customers' needs. But there'll be a load of other integrations that we've added that just don't quite. They do most of it, but not all of it. So you will see a slowdown in new features, and we are definitely kind of swapping over to focusing on either bug fixes or making other features fuller. Because when we started, the other thing is, you've got to remember, is when we started, we had a product that had been in development for a year, and we're competing with ConnectWise and Autotask that have been there for years and years and have got a very deep set of functionality. It's kind of a wide and deep set because they've been there for so long, and we're trying to catch up. So you're trying to catch up, and you're trying to develop things that get you to that next step. Can we get another set of customers that are another kind of maturity level up, or is it about trying to do something slightly different to get a different type of MSP? So you've got all those things at the same time. So you're trying to kind of increase this depth and breadth at the same time as still focusing on fixing bugs. So it is really difficult, but I would say that we feel now that we're very close. There's still gaps. I'm not arguing that. There's still gaps, but we're very close to getting exact feature parity, really, with things like ConnectWise and Autotask. And then at that point, there'll be much less pressure on us to develop new features, because we're then, in a comparison, it looks much better. That's the kind of honesty on that, I guess.
Yeah, I think some of the interesting things are, and again, I had it when I signed, right, was all the stipulations of contract. So when I bought Halo we were 60-man MSP, I had all these things I needed doing, and they were committed to before we purchased it. I suppose as time goes on, or even now, that pool will start shrinking a lot. So you're not against the wall, I suppose, of all these features you have to develop in really quickly, while trying to think about the impact of the system and all the other partners it's going to affect. I think Milestones was like a great example of that, right? That was probably sold as stipulations of contract, did the thing that person needed, but for a usable product really wasn't there. It's getting there now, but again, I think, you're right. I mean, for me, I think what we saw a lot, and what I used to tell a lot of our partners is, we've got these integrations, Halo does all of these things. I'm like, yeah, but you need to test them to make sure they work for you, because they used to be developed to work for that stipulation, whereas I am actually seeing it, and actually a very good point is you're probably now building integrations thinking about the full feature set of it rather than the one thing that this one customer needs, which is great to hear from my standpoint and the community standpoint. Is there anything, I suppose, you think this quarter or this year, integration wise or feature wise, that you're really excited about? That's, you maybe can't even say, but anything you're like, I can't wait to start this, amazing cool
No,
thing.
I
Like,
mean it would be nice to get things like the Ingram Micro and Tech Data hardware lookups in because they're due like on the next release.
yeah,
Just because we've had one of the reasons for that is because we've had the utilized catalog in there for over a year now, and without that extra price and stock data, it's a bit useless. We did plan to get it in there a lot quicker, but just because of a load of reasons, access to sandbox, resource, we couldn't do it. But getting that in would be nice, because the utilized catalog access actually costs a lot of money every year.
right, okay,
And now we can actually start getting some value from it. The other things are um, probably the like AI, Chat GPT, OpenAI stuff that we're starting to get a lot better with now. I think Morgan, obviously the product manager, has spent quite a lot of time working on that with the development team and trying to get it working right because it is difficult. It's all kind of new and there's loads of different ways you can approach loads of different problems there. So we've got some exciting stuff coming out about that. I think he's got a video that he's releasing soon just to run through what's possible now and what's going to be possible in the next couple of months, I think.
yep.
So hopefully you'll be able to see that soon.
Yeah, he wanted to get us involved with it, but we're doing the release note videos now. So I'm like,
Okay.
let this be our little thing because I don't want to muddy the waters too much. I don't want to be. People think I start working for you, Tim. That'd be awesome, that, wouldn't it? But no, it's really cool. So no, we're really pleased to hear that. I suppose some of the things that that we want to see is like it's been on the roadmap for ages, right? Is the onboarding and offboarding or buying and licenses or procuring licenses automatically, right? That's something that has been sat there for as long as I remember. And when I saw it on the roadmap, I was like, that's ambitious. And it sat there for like 18 months or 2 years. And I'm like, it's probably because that's really, really ambitious. Is that still being done?
Well, that's probably not actually the reason because they're not actually that difficult. I don't think. From what we looked at with like Ingram and stuff, some of them it's not possible. Some of the distributors you can't do it.
Yeah.
But with things like Ingram, it is just an API call to an endpoint to increase a quantity of a subscription. Like it is fairly easy. The reason that that's not been done yet is because it's, although it's asked for a lot, it's never like that critical. And we've done some stuff with that before, with features like that, where I get the feeling that even if we'd done it, a lot of people still wouldn't use it. At least not initially. It would take a long time to get adopted because it's quite complex and there'd be concerns about who's using it and how's it being used and who's getting notified when people are making these subscription changes. And I think a lot of people would prefer to just carry on doing it in their portals until it can be completely fleshed out. So I do think that's one of those features where you can't just go and do it. If you've done it to 70%, no one would use it. It has to be done 100% or 95% or something first time.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of MSPs start to use it in platforms like Roost and stuff like that now. I have a lot of concerns around it, especially with like NCE licenses, right? Someone's leaving work on a Monday, the new starter joins a week before. How do you handle that period? Are you buying a license and then having it sat there for a year? When I always probe that question, I always get, oh yeah, that kind of does happen. And I'm like, well, there's a problem there, right? Because that could be like 500 quid a license if you're doing like an E5 or something for the year or E3. Like it's a lot of money you could be burning there. It needs to be, carefully handled. So there's a lot to do it. Again, we're doing stuff with the run books and stuff around that as well. It is complicated, but yeah, that'd be awesome to get in there.
I think it's a complex business process because there's a lot that goes into making a decision of whether to buy a license or when to buy a license or I don't know what kind of license to buy, and you need all that information to make a good decision. And that's why it has to be a really good feature because if you don't have enough information, you'll end up either making wrong decisions or you just won't use the feature.
Yeah, makes perfect sense. I suppose, conscious of your time today, Tim, you are the busiest man I know. I'll end with one question, and that's purely because I don't know. So we've currently got HaloPSA, or Halo as a company, in the UK, America, Australia, and I've seen some stuff on LinkedIn about Dubai. But is that a thing? Are you in Dubai now, or are you still looking at Dubai? Like, what? It's never been announced, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know if we announced the other ones really. I can't remember if we really announced them, but yeah, Ayaz is out in Dubai, so he's in charge of that region. He's got kind of, I think he's starting to build a team out there for support and sales. And it does, you have to have people locally in certain locations just because they won't buy from you otherwise. People in certain areas won't
Yeah.
buy from you unless you've got a local office. You also want local people for the time zones, both on support and consultancy and the sales teams, because otherwise it's just very, very difficult. And you want to speak to people who get your problems as well, because it is different markets do have slightly different issues that will be much easier to understand if you live there, if you're from that location. We always send out the person that goes and opens an office in a location is always someone that spent time at least 2 or 3 years at Halo HQ, so in UK.
Yeah.
So they won't necessarily be like British, English, or whatever, but they would have at least spent time there and spent time with the teams. They understand our company culture and how we work and things like that. And we want to be sure that they get all that before they go out and start a team out there. But yeah, we've got one there. I think we're also planning to open another one in the US this year or next year. I think it's later this year, maybe. In Florida, I think it is.
Nice.
Somewhere like that. Just to have a bit more of a
Everyone
presence
would be
out
going
there.
out there. You'd have only staff in the UK, they'd be gone, living their best lives in Florida.
I don't really like Florida that much.
What?
Whenever I've been to America a few times, obviously with work, and it's mostly been Vegas and Florida, and I just get a bit sick of it. It's all a bit, I don't know. I much preferred going to places
Need to
like
be careful
Atlanta.
here.
Yeah, I know. But I like Atlanta was probably my favorite place I went to in America, just because it was like a normal, proper city. There's just
Yeah,
normal
just
stuff
chilled out,
going on
right?
there.
Yeah.
There's no alligators. There's no mad people in
No
Vegas.
mad people. I've never been to America. Again, obviously, you know as much as we do, but we're quite equally spread between the UK and America. Our customer base is about 50%. I think it's actually 40% in both UK and America. My fiance keeps telling me off a lot recently because a lot of my language is becoming Americanized. So I put a LinkedIn post up last year, like, I'm taking a vacation soon, and she was like, go look in the mirror. Who do you think you are? Like, we're taking a holiday with the kids, we're off in a caravan, Connor. I'm like, yeah, I get it, but I'm just speaking all the time like this American language, I suppose, right? Even though it's clearly English. And like categorization now, I default with a Z, and my default currency is now dollars. It's a little bit awkward sometimes, but yeah, it's really cool. What about any other countries you're hitting? You go and get an office in Canada, or is no plans?
We thought about Canada. It was going to be Canada or Florida, and I think we ended up going for Florida. Don't know exactly why. I think it might have been visa stuff, visa restrictions. We were looking at South Africa as well, but I'm not sure that will happen. Not sure that will happen in the next couple of years.
Tough market, South Africa as well, though, isn't it? The
Yeah,
economy's not great still, I think, which is obviously, it sucks to hear. We've had a few SA MSPs come through, and it's a really tough market out there. We see it the same with Europe as well. Actually, we work with a few European MSPs now, and that's a market that I'll be honest, we don't really understand still yet. I think we know America quite well. We know Australia fairly well. We know UK obviously bread and butter, but like the European market for MSPs is still something that I'm, or we're as a company are trying to learn. It's a different kind of fish out there.
It's I'm not being offensive here. This is purely from what I've seen. It's like the maturity level of the MSP and their operational maturity will vary massively between regions like that. And there will be exceptions. We've got some companies in France using Halo that are very, very mature, and they're using lots of automation and really good MSPs. But I think on the whole they are slightly less mature, so they won't get as much out of a tool like this, like Halo, or ConnectWise. So it's a tougher sell because they're not getting as much value from it, and they're not interested in that much value from it. I know had an interesting conversation with a guy that used to work for what was it Sony or Samsung? He was an executive there, and he said if you tried to sell a tool like Halo in that area of the world, most people would not be interested because they have huge teams doing lots of manual work, and they wouldn't like the idea that it's all being put onto electronic systems, which I thought was a bit crazy.
One of the things we've seen with the Europe market in particular is the real divide in how it's valued. IT as a service. So like we've got, I think we're like 5 or 6 European partners now, and their staff are paid more than what any of my UK staff were ever paid, but their contract values are way lower than wherever we've ever sold in any market, because they can't sell any higher. So when your tooling's coming in at such an expensive cost, they pivot that not against salaries but against contractual costs, and it's really hard. Like when we come in with our consultancy fees, they think I'm sitting on a throne of gold. Like it's not the case. It's just, we're quite acclimated, I suppose, of America and the UK now, but it's a really interesting market for us that we're trying to understand, and I think it is. We see it a lot. They do a lot of manual work. There's typically quite a few of them, but their contracts are quite tight, their margins are quite tight. So something definitely we dropped our prices for a little bit and then realised that was the wrong approach, and now we're kind of equaled out again. But it is an interesting market. I think you've got quite a lot of partners though now, right, out in Europe. I keep seeing new one announced today. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it. It starts with a B. Bruce.
Oh, is that Bechtel?
Yeah, that's the one. They're quite big, aren't they?
They're big. They sell ITSM really. They won't do any HaloPSA, I don't think.
Fine.
They said they basically, when it gets to that level of your corporates, so the big, I don't know, multinational kind of companies, they don't really ever buy direct from companies like Halo or ServiceNow. They almost always go through a trusted advisor. So you get these companies like Bechtel, and there's loads of them all over the world. The big ones are obviously like EY and stuff like that. The big consultancy, accountancy firms. But there's a lot of smaller ones that are kind of trying to emulate them, and they all go through those. So without being in touch with them, there's a whole massive segment of the market that you can't even sell to, because they're never going to go direct. They'll basically go to these guys and say, who should I buy? They say, yep, go for this, this, and this, and we'll have a consulting fee on top of that as well for implementing it for you. The Halo ITSM side needs those partners to actually compete with tools like ServiceNow and Ivanti. On the PSA side, we have a load of partners around the world reselling, mostly in kind of markets where there's a different language, because again, that just makes it so much. It reduces friction and a barrier, because it's very difficult to sell a technical tool if you can't speak the same language. And even if they can, because a lot of Germans and I don't know, Scandinavians speak very good English, but it's just it's different when you're talking about, I don't know, change management and problem management and stuff. They don't really have great translations for those, and a lot gets lost. So we do have them for when we need to, definitely.
The funniest builds we do are working with people in like Montreal and Quebec in Canada, where they're like English and French speaking, and they translate half of Halo into French, and you've got my British white ass who can barely speak English trying to navigate through Halo in French, and everything's been renamed, and it's just like you question why you're doing this to yourself. Like, my muscle memory is really good, but unfortunately, and you probably know this, but I think you pivot in so you can like search the features better in Halo now. So what you've started doing on release notes is moving things. Well, I'm kind of muscle memoried of Halo now. Like, I know where all the tick boxes are. So now when I go to an area, they're not there anymore. I'm like getting gaslighted by it. I'm like, there was definitely a feature to do this thing in this area, and then it's in like French, and I'm like, I'm just done for now. This is it. I can't help you. Sorry, but it's it's quite funny. So anyway, again, really conscious of your time. Great chatting with you, Tim. We didn't talk as much about it as I wanted to, but it's always a pleasure to get your insights with it. So just thank you very much for your time. Happy Valentine's Day, mate.
Likewise.
Thank you again from me and the community, I suppose, for all the support you give the community, personally and as a company, right? You're kind of renowned now for being present but also helpful, and you do help anyone that comes across your inbox or in any of the channels. So thank you from me. Really great chatting with you, mate. Really appreciate it, and hope you have a fantastic day, and we'll speak again soon.
Yeah, cool. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.